Beyond the Dark on Radio City 96.7 and City Talk 105.9.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's cross over to America now and speak to Marshall Vian Summers about a book called Life in the Universe. Hello, Marshall.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
Now, covers speak volumes, and this cover speaks volumes, as I just said. It's amazing. What made you write the book, first of all?
Well, the book was really revealed to me as part of a larger teaching called The New Message, and part of The New Message deals with the subject of life in the universe, the reality that we're all going to be facing as we emerge into a larger arena of intelligent life.
Why do you think we're so obsessed now with all these things out there, with the future? Because it seems to be more so than the days of the Egyptians, the days of the Romans, the days of mummification. It seems to be changing. We seem to be more passionate about what's going on out there.
Yes, I think that's very true, and it's probably a product of our own development and evolution, our technology, and the interest in our world by various races who have taken an interest or have been observing us for some time. So we're reaching a point of engagement. In fact, the engagement has already begun. But it's an engagement that we barely understand, and that is part of the reason that life in the universe was revealed to me and is being now made available to everyone.
Can I ask how it was revealed to you?
It was really mysterious how these teachings come, these new message teachings. An angelic voice presented itself to me and called me forth to receive these series of teachings that comprise the book Life in the Universe. And this has been a process that's been going on with me for over 30 years. But this particular book had a really important message to deliver, because we really don't know what we're dealing with when we talk about life in the universe. Who's out there? What's going on out there? What does it mean for us to be emerging or to become aware of a larger arena of intelligent life? And science in its own right is beginning to discover, planets and perhaps habitable planets within a habitable zone. And so we're moving towards a juncture or a big connection, I think, with our future and our destiny in space. But we need an education about life in the universe that I don't think we could get here on Earth, something that has to be revealed to us from a greater power beyond.
Marshall, why were you chosen?
Well, that's a good question, a question I've asked myself in many troubling moments. I feel that I was called to do this, to begin this process, and when I look back upon my life, I can see how my life was oriented to this from a very early age. I began as a special ed teacher for the visually handicapped, and from there I began to hear an inner voice that was very mysterious and very accurate and very powerful. And it was that voice that eventually revealed itself as an angelic presence that wanted me to begin to receive a new revelation for humanity.
Some people would say, why do we need a new message from God?
We need a new revelation because we're facing a world in decline. Our religious traditions are fractured, divisive within themselves and between one another. We're entering a time of world change where greater economic instability and political instability will be coming over the horizon. And we need to have our inner life, our spiritual life, revitalized, but we also need to know where we're going in this world. What's coming over that horizon? And where do we stand in the cosmos? The cosmos now is becoming something much more physical and real and comprehensible to us as we begin to gain an understanding of the physical universe.
A huge question now, Marshall, the biggest question. Why are we here?
Why are we here?
Yeah, why are we here? In your opinion?
Well, I feel we're here to contribute to the evolution of our world. I think when the purpose of each individual, who I believe has been given a greater purpose in the world, is here to contribute to the safety and the progress of humanity. And though when we look out in the world, there seems to be very little evidence of that because, frankly, most of the human family is living in abject poverty and under subjugation with increasing conflicts around the world. But we're really here individually to do something important and to play a part, however small or humble it might be, to further the safety and the advancement of humanity and the well-being of people everywhere. And that does include the well-being of our planet, which is becoming increasingly degraded.
So why is the planet here? If there is a universe so big, why is the planet here? I can't.
Why
get
is the planet here?
Yeah, why are we? I just can't get my head around why this has been put here.
Well, we're a part of creation that's living in separation from our source. We're living in a physical reality. We're living in a state of physical manifestation. We're all individuals who give ourselves an identity, or for whom we're given an identity by our culture and our families. We're living in a state that's very different from our origin and our destiny. And the way that we can navigate this difficult physical reality is by gaining access to the deeper knowledge that lives within us, that has a plan for our life, that we're here for a purpose that we really cannot discern from our intellect alone, something that has to be experienced at a deeper level, and something that can guide us and orient us to a greater contribution in life. And this is part of the core teaching of the new message, is to engage people with this greater power that lives within them, that provides the real clarity and direction for their life, their individual life, and what it means to be in the world at this pivotal time in our history.
I'm talking to Marshall Vian Summers about a book called Life in the Universe. Marshall, who were you before you were chosen? Who was Marshall?
Oh, Marshall was a very average person. I grew up in a middle-class family. My father was a professional man. I had normal schooling. I had a fairly normal life, and there was nothing unique or special about me. I actually felt that I would live a normal life until I began to have a greater presence come into my life and begin to redirect me. And that happened in stages. That wasn't all in one event. But my origins are really much more mystical than that, as I see now, that I was really prepared, even before I came into this world, to receive a new revelation for humanity. And indeed, that is what my life has been oriented to from the very beginning, and that is what has come into being in my adult life and has really been the focus of my existence for the past 3 decades.
You sound like a very intelligent man. I've got to ask a question. I'm not being disrespectful by asking this, but I must ask this question. Have you ever doubted yourself? Have you ever questioned your own sanity?
I have doubted myself in the sense of, am I doing the right thing, or is this real what I'm doing? And I certainly would be dishonest to say that that had never occurred. I've never really doubted my sanity. I feel I'm a very grounded person. I'm a very conservative person by nature. I'm not given to flights of fancy or outlandish kinds of things. So I don't think my sanity was ever a question for me. But certainly the direction that my life was being given and the mysterious nature of my engagement with a divine source, which defies description, certainly generated doubt and confusion, particularly at various important junctures of my life.
Have religions accepted you? Have they questioned you, or do they dismiss you?
I think religions don't know what to make of me, and certainly I've been denied and doubted. My proclamation has been seriously disputed. But, particularly when someone says, well, God has already spoken and God will not speak again. I mean, there's a large portion of the human population in the world that would proclaim that. But we don't know what God's going to do next. And we have no notion of what the divine intent, purpose, or activity in life in terms of the world really is. And so if this is indeed a new revelation, and I declare that it is, from my own experience, then we need to see what it really is and what it says and what it means for your life, for your individual life, and perhaps for the world as a whole. There are people coming to this new message from many traditions, not to change their religions necessarily, but to look for a kind of inspiration and power and direction they're not finding in the traditions in which they were raised or to which they're oriented. And so we're all looking for this inspiration. We're all looking for that which can guide us and bring clarity to a life that's otherwise very confusing.
To people that are listening to this interview now who do not believe in any religion, do not believe there's a God, do not believe there's anything there, well, what do you say to them?
I would say that the power and presence of this knowledge I speak of still is within you. It exists beyond the realm and the reach of your intellect. It is from this that your greater understanding, your intuition, your insight, whatever degree it has come forth for you, comes from. And so there's a mysterious part of us that defies our understanding, our intellect, and our notion of ourselves as social beings or even biological beings. And so I say, come and explore the new message, even if you don't believe in God, because belief is not a prerequisite here. We're really dealing with something that is in the realm of profound experience. And many people who do not believe in God have had profound experiences that they cannot explain to themselves fully or perhaps to one another.
Marshall, did you have problems convincing people to publish this book?
No. No, that was not a problem because
is he laughing in the background?
My wife is here with me. She's
right.
laughing in the background. But no, I think that was not a problem. I mean, certainly how this book would be presented in the world is very challenging because the assertion is that this one man claims that he knows what the reality and the spirituality of life in the universe is, and he's proclaiming what it is in a series of writings. And so that's a pretty big proclamation. And all that I can ask people to do is to experience this, to investigate it for yourself, and not to dismiss it out of hand, because if it is that important, it should not be dismissed. It should be considered. And that's all I can ask of people, is to come honestly without trying to dismiss this or throw it away, because it's too valuable for our understanding.
Marshall, to take yourself away from the book and for you to step out of yourself and be somebody else, would you say, knowing the book, would you say it's a difficult book to read, a difficult book to understand?
No, I don't think it is a difficult book to read. It's given in very simple, very straightforward language. I think the second part of the book, the spirituality of life in the universe, is pretty challenging. I mean, it defies our assumptions and our beliefs about the universe, because since time immemorial, people have been wondering about life in the universe, wondering about what's out there in this canopy of stars that we see every night. But what the reality in the spirituality of life in the universe is quite different, I think, than much of what people assume to be true or what they would hope for. And so I think in that sense it's challenging. But in terms of understanding the language and the ideas, it reflects so much to our own experience of life here on Earth, because we live in nature here. And the universe is a bigger expression of that same nature.
Stepping aside from the message and looking at the book Life in the Universe that you've written, evil, does that belong in there? Is it in there? Is it a part of the statement?
Well, while evil is not discussed directly in Life in the Universe, it is addressed in other parts of the new message as a real and formidable force in the world that is supported and supplemented by people who are either generate it themselves or fall under its persuasion. I mean, there are certainly powers of persuasion that we can feel in life that would take our lives in a very bad direction. There's much seduction out there. There's much manipulation out there. There are forces we don't understand that seem to defy definition, that prompt us to do things that are not in our best interest. So the idea of evil really is something that we have to accept in life without making it a focus of life, because it is part of the mental and physical environment in which we live.
How's the book been received by people?
Well, it's just come out, and it's being read avidly by many people, and we've been getting very good response from it, and as well as some real criticism. I mean, people often have objections about whether this is a new message from God, or they have objections about how anyone could know the things that are presented in these writings. And those are reasonable. I mean, I understand why people have those questions.
Are you trying to create a new religion?
I'm trying to bring a spiritual reality into the world and a physical reality, because we're at the threshold of the greatest event in human history, which is our emergence into a universe full of intelligent life. we're also facing a world in decline, of environmental decline and growing economic and political disruption. I mean, we're seeing that everywhere. We're seeing that happening in the physical environment. We're seeing that happening within all aspects of our cultures and our economies. So we're living at a momentous time and a great turning point. And I feel that what's contained in Life in the Universe and the other parts of the new message are very, very relevant and very focused on these great changes that we're beginning to experience now.
Was it a hard book to write?
No, I received it. It was easy. I received it in 3 days. I received it in 11 hours. It was recorded and transcribed, and what you're reading is exactly what was recorded and transcribed.
So you have a recording of a voice, a being, a what?
A voice. This is a spoken word. It wasn't written in the normal sense of writing. It was received as a voice. It was recorded as a voice and transcribed, and then now presented to everyone as Life in the Universe, to be read and considered, and to be, I think, deeply experienced.
Will we ever hear that voice? Will it ever be shown to us?
Yes, that voice can be heard in the new message. It's being made available in audio. There's a tremendous amount of audio of that voice available at newmessage.org, and people can go listen to it and have an experience of something that I think has never been available before, speaking at this level.
So the voice that you recorded came from a being, came from thin air, came from where?
Well, it came from an invisible part of our life, and it is actually, the voice is actually many voices in one. It's not just an individual or a personality. And it's a very unique voice, and the voice has never changed. It's always been this same voice. And people have tried to put nationalities of the voice. Oh, this voice sounds German, or this voice sounds Dutch, or this voice sounds Indian. But I think it defies definition. It's very remarkable.
Did it scare you?
It's a voice unlike anything I have ever heard before.
Did it scare you at all?
Oh, in the beginning, it was terrifying.
How did your wife cope? Because she's
terrifying.
living with a man. Well, she's living with a man, and all of a sudden, there's 3 in the relationship.
Well, I began to experience this voice before I met my wife,
Right.
shortly before I met my wife. So it was definitely already happening for me. And my wife has a very deep spiritual background, so she was able to experience this. For me, it was overwhelming, and particularly because it was giving me directives in my life. And I had to search my own soul as to whether I would follow these directives. And I'm certainly glad I did, because it has made all the difference.
When did you start recording the voices? Or the voices,
I started
you should
recording the voice
say.
in January of 1983.
And was there any... did it offend the voice at all? Or was the voice aware of it? You know,
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Well, there's a voice, that we hear a voice. I just wondered whether maybe the voice was speaking to you and didn't want to be heard by anybody else. So I thought maybe it would be offended if it was recorded.
Oh, no, I was actually asked to record. That was one of the first directives I was ever given, was prepare to record.
Yeah.
And I began to record alone, because I was certainly too shy and too uncertain to have anyone else hear this. But then I was asked to share the recordings with people, and I gave actually audiences at the beginning for people to hear the voice, certain small groups of people. And those early recordings constitute some of the first writings, the transcriptions of those constitute some of the first writings of the new message.
Marshall, I could speak to you for hours, but unfortunately I've got no more time, which is really, really sad. How can they find out more about you?
Well, you can certainly explore me at newmessage.org, and in fact, Life in the Universe is free online as an electronic book. And so much of what I've been presenting to the world is there for people to experience, to listen to read, and to download.
Marshall, Vian, Summers, thank you so much for speaking to me.
A pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.
Liverpool's biggest after-hours talk show, Late Night City, with Pete Price on Radio City 96.7 and City Talk 105.9.